Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Siebert. It's time for our tropical weather forecast here on YouTube. And boy, there's a lot going on in the tropics, but nothing pointed towards the Gulf of Mexico or even the Caribbean at this time. So let's just take a look. So we've been tracking this for the last several days. Still has a 60% chance. This right here, north of where Peter is, or what's left of Peter anyway, that's got a 10% chance for the next couple of days. Rose is still kind of falling apart out here. Then this is just coming off of Africa, 20% chance to 30% in the next 3 or 4 days. Then, of course, Sam. Sam's the only organized storm out there, but we have all these possibilities. So, yeah, we're still at the peak of hurricane season, as you can tell. So let's come on in and take a look at what's going on with Sam. Now, it's been interesting. Remember with the Nicholas, we had a hard time finding that closed circulation of low pressure, and so the Hurricane Center would say it's up here, then they'd come back and a few hours later and say it's down here and it's over there. Kind of seeming some of those kinds of problems here with Sam. So you've got the center, it seems to be right here, but the center of circulation was more up here to the north, but it does seem to be moving to the south. And so when we look at this and compare it with the computer models, so you see how the icon is up here, but the computer models are down here, starting down here to the south. So when you have a disagreement of where the low pressure is centered, that's hard on the models. Because then the models don't know, should we focus here, do we start here, do we start there? So if you've got problems here at the beginning of the equation, at the end of the equation, you're going to have a wider spread, which is exactly what we're seeing right now. Things are kind of together here, but as you get further in that equation where the variability becomes bigger, the variables are bigger, simply because we're still trying to figure out where that low pressure is. Now, having said all that, right now winds are up to 60 miles an hour, so it is organizing. It's getting stronger. And it doesn't really change anything of what we think is going to happen with the storm. It's just how the modeling is kind of playing around with it right now. So we think it becomes a hurricane by tomorrow. And then by Saturday, Sunday to Monday, major hurricane up to Category 3 with winds over 125 miles per hour or so. Now, as far as the forecast, still expected to come up here to the right. And even the long-range forecasting models still have it come close to the Bahamas and turns to the right. So staying away from the U.S. coastline completely, at least at this point anyway. So we'll keep our eye on Sam, but it's one of those storms that looks like it's just going to stay out in the open waters, which is just fine by us. And again, for us, it's all about cold fronts. Now, this is the front that came through the day before yesterday. This is our first significant front of the season, and it really does mark typically the end of hurricane season for us here in Southeast Texas. One, because it just blocks everything. Two, the water temperature of the Gulf of Mexico starts to drop. I mean, outside, the temperatures have been in the 50s and 60s. That impacts the water temperature a lot of the Gulf of Mexico. So as you start cooling down the waters, that lessens the ability for those waters to create big storms. Now, I mean, it still could rain and things like that, but it does usually mark the end of, well, autumn marks the end as the cooling period will take over. Now, also, this is good for the East Coast because no matter what happens, like for example, the leftovers of Peter and this little disturbance that might form, it doesn't matter what forms. This front and then the upper level wind is going to take pretty much everything away from the U.S. coastline. So while there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the Atlantic, right now the U.S. is looking pretty good, at least for the next little while. But of course, it's concerning that we see so many storms out there at the moment. So today we've added Sam to the list. We've only got 3 more names on the list now. We got Teresa, Victor, and Wanda that are left on the list. So we got to show you this. This is the supplemental list that's ready to go, and chances are we're going to have to use it coming up here in the next few months. Now, I don't think we're going to get here to the second columns, but we could easily get down here to Emery, Foster or so before hurricane season is done. So this is the new supplemental list. We won't have Beta and the Greek names anymore. We'll actually have these names. So that's what's going on in the tropics. A lot of activity out there, nothing pointed in our direction, and we hope it stays that way. We'll talk to you real soon.